Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe, entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farrar.
Okay, we'll take some Q&A from the floor, Anne, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then who's going to start us off with a question for Anne?
Oh, good.
Yes, Mark.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry, Tiger Boy. Was it Tiger? Tiger Baby, sorry.
I suppose what I really want to know, Anne, is did something happen to you when you were younger to precipitate this crime, obsession?
I think that I just love reading it, I think. So I started off, as I say, with Enid Blyton, Malcolm Saville, and moved very quickly on to the Sherlock Holmes short stories, G.K. Chesterton, Father Brown short stories, which are nothing like the television adaptations. And just, although I read very widely and I've read all sorts of stuff and did English at A-level and in university, my comfort reading was always crime fiction. So I started off, when I started writing, I thought I was going to write a great work of literature. And I found that I could do characters all right. You know, I could create characters that were quite interesting. But you can't just have a load of people sitting in a room chatting. And I couldn't work out what to do with them, what they were going to do. So it was the plot that I really struggled with until I killed one of them off. And then it was easy, because that structure is there for me. I don't really have to worry about the plot, because it's there. You know, you have in the first couple of chapters, you have a murder, you have a limited number of suspects, you have some kind of resolution, which seems quite sort of flip and facile, but actually that liberates me to write about the things that I'm really interested in, which is fractured families, communities, and what keeps them together and what makes them fall apart, how people grow out of the place where they were raised. Looking at that idea of exploring, I guess, kind of social issues, really. I trained as a social worker and I worked as a probation officer, so that's still, you know, what makes people who they are? Is it the community that they grow up with? Is it something that's happened with their families, the parents that raise the nature-nurture thing that you can explore through crime fiction? Especially these days, you know, when services are being cut quite dramatically. If you talk to police officers, a lot of their time is spent working with people with mental health issues, people who are depressed, people who are homeless. And so it's not a stretch to use crime fiction to look at those things too. So, yeah, that's the series.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, point.
Another question for Anne. Just down here at the front, please. Do you want to tell us who you are?
Oh,
Moira? Hi, Moira.
Moira, the last time we saw you, you said that you felt that authors that wrote about serial killers were just lazy. Do you still feel like that?
I think I said that there is a temptation when you're struggling with the plot to just kill someone off. Do you know what I mean? Because it brings the tension and it brings the suspense in. I'm not interested in writing about serial killers. I don't want to write about monsters. I think there are very few monsters out there. And it's not, I mean, I quite enjoy reading about them, but I wouldn't want to write about them. And I do think that there's a temptation when the plot's flagging, and we've seen it in some TV shows as well, just have another body and another body. There was a lovely crime writer called Robert Barnard, who said to me once, and I do think more than one murder is a little vulgar. And sometimes, you know, it's quite hard to do just one, but you don't want more than, I don't want to write, you know, every couple of pages there's another murder. The TV show of Shetland has become quite gothic, and that's quite fun, you know, that it is much darker than the books now, I think. But, yeah, for me, it's a challenge to keep the suspense and keep the tension without resorting to killing somebody off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, Moira. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question for Anne?
It's a really
Over
interesting
here,
question.
just behind you there, Katie.
Two
Can you tell us who
here.
you are?
Three here in this corner.
I'm Heather, and I was just wondering, do you meet up with the murder squad very often, and do you pinch ideas off each other?
I don't think we pinch ideas off each other. The last time we met all together was in The Word in South Shields, which is, if you've not been there, do go, because it's a brilliant, again, me flying the flag for libraries. It is a glorified library, but we call it the Centre for the Written Word. And we had a fabulous weekend there where we did, on the Saturday, we did writers' workshops, and on the Sunday we did a reader's day, or the other way around, I think, and had a murder mystery and met lots of people. So that was really good. We don't meet up, all of us, that often, but we're very supportive of each other. I think writing can be quite lonely, especially when you're starting or you're not doing too well, because it's such a competitive business. And I know what it's like, you know, to be right at the bottom of the heap and seeing all these other people being successful and trying not to be jealous because they're doing so well, but actually sort of dying inside because you're writing your heart out and you're not being recognised. So it's great now for me when I'm doing quite well to be able to support other people and do events with them and feel that I'm giving a bit back. And our next joint event is in Chester in March because it's our 20th anniversary. 20th, so we're doing a 20th birthday party in W.H. Smith's in Chester. And we're all going to be together and we'll have fizz and cake and raffles and a real party. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah.
Thank you.
There were two more here. The lady in red and then the person behind you.
I'm not quite sure if it's Jimmy Perez I miss or Shetland. It's
Right.
certainly one. I really loved the ending of the Shetland series.
Good.
I loved the way he was on that boat with his new love. However, and I'm sure you've been dreading this question, has he definitely gone? Or is there any hope he may come back under Ann Cleeves rather than the BBC?
Well, as I said, the BBC are bringing him back. I'm not going to write any more novels about him. There might be the occasional short story, but there will be no more novels.
I will hang on to that thought. Perhaps he might go to India.
Jimmy Perez in India, that would be something, wouldn't it? Yeah, would be good fun.
Hello, my name's Penny.
Hi, Penny.
I've often wondered how important to you is your choice of names for characters. For instance, I couldn't imagine Vera being called something like Tabitha. And does the name come first and then the character, or is it the other way around? Or do they just sort of come as you go along?
The Vera one is quite interesting because the name came with her just as she burst in through that door. And Brenda is sometimes asked about the name, and she says, well, it's obvious, you know, it's Vera. Is it Latin or Greek? I think it's Latin. The root for truth, you know, veracity. No. It just came with her because, and Stanhope, I suppose, because of the village in County Durham. But that other names are important, and again, it's about geography. So if I'm in Shetland, I know that it's going to be a Shetland name. So it'll be a Leask, or it'll be a Henderson, so it'll be one of those.
Like Perez.
Well, Perez is interesting, isn't it? For those of you who don't know, Jimmy Perez came about because the first book, Raven Black, is about what it is to be an outsider. So I wanted a central character who belonged but also didn't quite belong. And a way of doing that was to make him a Shetlander, but he was a Fair Islander, and not that many people, even Shetlanders, go to Fair Isle because it's a horrendous boat trip. People are always sick on that boat. So there was that, but then there was an Armada ship, El Gran Griffon, that was wrecked off Fair Isle, and there were 60 survivors who climbed ashore. So it's not outside the bounds of possibility that one of those married a local island woman and that the name continued. But it was really chosen for that particular book. I didn't realise that there would be more books in the series when I wrote it. Devon names will be, so Venn, Matthew Venn, there is a Venn quarry just outside Barnstaple, and apparently Venn is a bit of marshy ground in Devon dialect. There's also a character in a Thomas Hardy book, I think The Return of the Native, called Venn, And I didn't know that when I wrote the book, but it's lovely because Matthew Venn is coming home. He is a native returning. So that kind of has all worked out quite well, but it'll be kids that I went to school with, their names like Southcombe and Brownscombe and Devon names, and from Devon places, Charland, Shapland, Yo, May, those are Devon names. And Northumberland, I think of the Reaver names like Robson, Armstrong, Fenwick, so we'll always have some of those dotted around the Vera books. But names are important.
Thank you.
Was there one here? So this gentleman in the front there?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kieran.
Hi, Kieran.
Do you retain artistic control over the TV adaptations, or do they take on a life of their own?
No, they very much take on a life of their own, and I wouldn't want to meddle because I don't know what makes good television. And I think that part of the reason why they're so successful is that I just let them get on with it. So my first contact with television was a woman called Elaine Collins who'd found the Vera books in an Oxfam shop in North London. That's how they came to be on the telly, that she'd bought a book to read on holiday. And it was clear that she really understood the books. She got the characters, she understood the place, and she understood the stories. And that was enough, really. I have friends who have been a part of the adaptation process, and it's never been happy for them, because the TV companies are going to do what they want anyway. And rather than have sort of aggro and falling out, it seemed to me that the best way was just to hand over creative control and let them get on with it. And that's the way it's been, and because of that we get on very well. But it's also a question of respecting other creatives, because nobody interferes when I'm writing the books, and I don't think I should have the right to interfere with when script writers and directors are making the shows. So it's a kind of respect thing and trust. And because of that, I get invited to the read-throughs every time before they start filming. I get invited to the cast and crew screenings. So I'm going down to London in January to watch the first episode of the new series of Vera. That'll be 10 series of Vera. It's mad, isn't it? We thought we'd be lucky if we got a pilot. So, yeah.
Are there any supporting artists here that have been on Vera?
Yeah, well done.
Good stuff.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah, brilliant.
Grand. I hope you enjoy it. Is it good fun to be in? Good. Yeah. I know that Brenda is very grateful to supporting artists for coming along and being a part of the show.
Was there a question at the back there? Yes, this lady here. Yes, I was a policeman once.
Were you?
I was indeed.
It's very boring though, isn't it? You just stand there and it's...
I wasn't bored. I thought I was great.
Oh. I am, as I said, invited onto set, but I tend to go at lunchtime because the food's usually quite good.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And there's not so much standing around in the cold watching the same shot being taken from different angles.
Hello, Anne.
Hi.
My name's Lorna.
Hi, Lorna.
My formative years were spent in Tanganyika, which is now Tanzania.
Right.
And I was curious when you said that you'd written a short story.
Yeah.
And just was curious as to where you may have based it and whether that was a murder as well.
It was, yeah. I've done 2 stories because I first went to Tanzania when my youngest daughter was in the 6th form, and she went to Shelley High School in West Yorkshire. It was that short period when we were in West Yorkshire. And the school raised money to bring Tanzanian kids to stay with families, and then they went back and stayed actually in Moshi Tech, in the school there, because it's a boarding school, because different tribes and people coming from all over the country, they thought that it was sensible to board the kids together so that they would start to be a bit more integrated. So she went there. We had a couple of Tanzanian lasses staying with us. And then when Ruth went back, she fell madly in love with a lad from Halifax who was doing his gap year teaching in the school and wanted to go back and see him. And I said, yes, you may go, but I've never been to sub-Saharan Africa, so I'm coming too. And we did, it was great. It was like being 18 again, because I didn't have any money in those days, and we used public transport and stayed in really quite rough, cheap places, and at the school, and went to Tanga. So the first one is called A Rough Guide to Tanga, and it's sort of about kind of, yeah, subconscious racism, I suppose, or not so subconscious racism. And then there's another, then when it was my husband and my 40th wedding anniversary, we went back and did it posh style with a friend who organises natural history tours, and stayed in quite smart lodges and looked at all the animals. And that short story is called The Locked Tent Mystery, and it's a kind of play on the locked room mystery, and it's in a tented camp with a safari group. And yeah, Moses and the locked tent, and I bring in all the people who were on our trip, so it was quite fun.
And are they available to?
They are, yeah. If you go online, you might be able to find them. Yeah, but I'm not quite sure what anthologies they were in, but we're certainly going to pull together all the stories and make them more available. So I hope so.
Was it this question over here? Over this one?
Hello, Anne. My name is Anne as well.
Oh, good.
The question I'd like to ask is, all the Vera books that you've written, do you have a favourite?
Oh, that's so hard, isn't it? Because it's usually the last one that I've written. So it's this one that I've just finished that I've really enjoyed writing. It's set up in the wilds of Northumberland just before Christmas. So it's a snowy, Christmassy, but quite bleak story, actually. And we find out about Vera's landed gentry family, because after she's found this toddler in the car, she chances across this quite big, grand house, and that's where Hector's family still live. And yeah, so that's what, and I really enjoyed writing that one. So it's always the last one I've written. I don't really have any favourites.
Katie, we've got this lady in the front, and there's one in the back as well.
Hi, my name's Emily, and you mentioned earlier about when you're writing, comparing to the way Americans interpret, like Lover or The Lover. So now that Vera's getting popular in America, how have you had any response to the way, can they understand the Northeast accent, or, you know, the dialect?
I think they're very glad for subtitles.
Okay,
and it's
because my father did.
Even more so with Shetland. I have, and even English people are actually quite rude about it. And poor Dougie Henshaw gets so grumpy when people say, "Why don't you speak more clearly?" And he said, "I've grown up, for however old he is, having to make do with English accents, and I'm Scottish. Can you not struggle and listen to an accent that's not yours?" And I think that's right, really. We ought to be able to accommodate. We're a United Kingdom. We ought to be able to accommodate. We all have grown up with Southern received pronunciation on the television and radio. And there has been this bias against people from the regions doing, and we're breaking that down now, I think. But yeah, so there's that. And the only Shetlanders think it's hilarious that there are all these people with Glasgow accents pretending to come from Shetland, really growing up in Glasgow. And Shetlanders get quite grumpy. But there is, every professional Shetland actor that's come out of Shetland has appeared in that show.
Oh,
so, and the returning character who is a Shetlander is Sandy Wilson. Sandy, played by Stephen Robertson, who grew up in Shetland and is a Shetlander. So if you want to know what a real Shetland accent is, that's Sandy, and he is a Shetlander.
I think it's wonderful, because everyone gets to hear other accents from around England, which is fabulous, besides just the
I think sort of people are struggling, then there is that facility to put on the subtitles, and I think that's great.
Do you think we should tone down our accents at all?
No.
Is that at this point?
No. Shetlanders call it knapping. If they're speaking slowly, for an outsider to be able to understand them, they talk about knapping. And there is definitely, I mean, the Shetland, if you had real Shetlanders, I've been going back for 40 years now, but if I get two people from the island of Walser talking, I cannot understand a word. So they have to knap for me. Yeah.
Hi, Anne. My name's Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
What are you reading at the moment?
At the moment, I'm just thinking what I'm reading. I've just finished a book by, she's called Julia something Fleming. I'm looking at a librarian down here, and I can't remember her, but yes, an American writer. And I'm also now reading Abir Mukherjee's book, the most recent book, which is something like Tales from the East or something like that. If you've not read Abir Mukherjee, he's brilliant. He's Glaswegian, but obviously of Indian heritage, and sets his books in Calcutta in the 1920s. So just after the First War, just coming up to Indian independence, and his central character is an English person who's gone in and is heading up the Calcutta police force, very damaged after the First War, and his second in command is an Indian guy who is much better educated than he is, high caste Indian, went to Harrow and Cambridge, but obviously can't be in charge because he's a native. And so it's very interesting looking at that dynamic between the two of them, but a great sense of place as well. So if you've not read them, Smoke and Ashes is the one before this. Yeah.
Great question.
My name's Lynn as well, and I just wanted to ask you if you visited your plaque on the quayside recently. I was very privileged to be around the day that a few of you wonderful people were presented with the plaque on the quayside pavement.
Well, that was a real honour. You don't know, it was such a great honour to do that because I wasn't born here, and that sense almost of being accepted by my city and my region that I feel now a part of was really special, yeah. And I did walk past it not very long ago because I was going down to the, the stacks where you can get nice food and glasses of beer down on the south side of the Tyne. So I did walk past it then.
Yes, well, it's a real honour, and it should be in the list of your achievements.
Oh no, I was just so chuffed, and my daughters came with me, and we all had a little weep because we would have liked my husband to be there too. But we had a lovely time. So thanks very much.
Hi, my name's Carol. I've just been trying to think of how to word this. When you've had commercial success, as you have done, both with the books and with the TV series, at the beginning you talked about your motive being that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Now, how much are you influenced by commercial pressure to be successful and thinking about the television series and that, or do you just forget those? So when you've introduced this new character and this new set of novels, are you influenced by TV or expectations from publishers?
No, the great thing, I'm so lucky. I feel very sorry for writers who are suddenly successful, who are showered with this huge advance when they're just starting, because it must be so hard. And publishing is actually a very ruthless business. So you imagine you're a new author, there's been an auction for your book, you get this very big advance. And then it's a lot to live up to. You have to sell a lot of books to earn that money back. Otherwise, you're costing your publisher money. It's a very, very weird business. And then if you don't earn the advance back, they won't put so much marketing budget behind the second book. And then that won't sell so well. And then suddenly you're a failure and you're dropped. And you might be a brilliant writer, but because the expectation and the pressure was so great, then it's hard to get another publisher if that happens. Whereas with me, nobody knew about me for 20 years, so I could just write as I wanted to write. And that's given me the confidence still to do that. And I don't care. You know, I really don't care. I love what I do. I care about it being the best book that I can write and a book that readers will enjoy. I'm not that fussed about the sales and all that, really. My publisher is, but I'm not too much, because that's not what it's about. What's about is the fun bit for me is that telling the story, finding a story that I want to tell and I would want to read. It's very selfish, but I write for myself. I write the sort of book that I would enjoy reading. And if other people enjoy it too, that's brilliant. But I don't write a book thinking, oh, I wonder if this is any good to be adapted for telly, or I won't write this because I don't think the TV producers will like it. That's not how I work. I'll sometimes, if I'm writing a Vera book, write a line and think, I hope the scriptwriter keeps that in if they do the adaptation, because Bren's going to love saying that. Because I know she really enjoys those put-downs and those witty remarks, but I'm so lucky not to have to worry about the other stuff. It's great. It's very liberating.
Hi, Anne. It's the elf here.
Yeah.
It's Vanessa. Do you think you've lived before?
No. Wow.
And reason why?
Because I don't believe in any any sense of reincarnation.
Right. I just wondered, with all the sort of characters that you give in your sort of books and everything, and all the sort of detail you give, it's as if you have lived before, you know.
Yeah, I think it's just being curious about people and being open to, it's being nebby, really. That's all it is. And I think that's another thing that you need to do if you're a writer. You need to be interested in other people. And it's about that rather than anything that's kind of intuitive. I think it's something we could all do.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
I've got... Right.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anand, and I am from India.
Oh.
You're going to Jaipur,
I
and
am.
I bet somebody will look at your face, your hand, and tell you that if not in your last life, as the lady was implying, in your next life, you'll definitely be a criminal.
My name's Penny. In the Shetland book, which quite early on, the fiddler is killed.
Yes.
And you talk about knowing characters and people.
Yeah.
There are people in the folk world who think that they recognise the character of that fiddler.
It wouldn't be Chris Stout, would it?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that true?
Well, Chris Stout is a Fair Islander by heritage. I went to his mum and dad's wedding. So, yeah, I know Chris quite well, and he is a character.
He is, yes.
And a bit of a show-off, maybe. And,
very much so.
Yeah. So, yeah, Roddy Sinclair, it wasn't based on him, but he was... And Chris actually did an album called White Nights, not inspired by the book as much as the idea behind the book. Yeah, so he's a great friend. And I did Desert Island Discs on Radio 4 not very long ago and chose one of his tunes to remind me of Fair Island and great times with his mum and dad.
And David Bowie.
And I chose David Bowie as well. Yeah, I did.
Any questions for Anne? Oh.
Hi,
Anne. It's Donna.
Yeah.
You've always said that when you write a Vera book now, you hear Brenda's voice and you write for Brenda's Vera.
Yeah.
Do you think the same is going to... You think it's going to be the case for Matthew Venn? Do you have an actor in mind who you would like to play him, or is that already been decided?
No,
and if
no,
so, are
not,
you allowed to tell us who it is?
No, we've not got that far yet, because although the Matthew Venn books have been optioned for television by Silverprint, who are the same company that make Vera and Shetland, we're only quite early on in the process. So there is a script writer and they're starting to work on a script, but we've not got any further than that. So it'll need to be commissioned before we can think about casting.
Can you think of an actor who you would...
I can't really, no. You see, I don't, because I'm...
It's too early.
Because I'm inside their heads, I don't really visualise them from the outside. So...
Can you think of an actor? Have you got someone in mind?
No.
All right.
No, I'd only say who I fancy, you know.
Okay, Katie, this gentleman here.
Hi, I'm John from Whitley Bay.
Hiya.
Is your favourite book by your favourite author?
So, is my favourite book by my favourite author? You see, again, it's who I've just read and who I'm passionate about at the time, so it's quite tricky, really. And I read so much crime because I've reached a position where publishers send me books to blurb, so every week I get a new book dropping on my mat in the house, so I'm reading lots and lots at the minute. There's an American writer that I really like called Laurie Raider Day, and I've been reading quite a lot of her recently, but I can't say whether the book or I tell you, I'll recommend somebody if you've not read him. Mick Herron. Anybody read Mick Herron? Brilliant books, sort of spy books, and Mick's from Newcastle, so he's a local lad, and the best central character in Jackson Lamb, who's in charge of this. He runs a department for bad spies, people who've messed up big style, but who know too much for them to sack. And they're called the Slow Horses, and they are just brilliant. So read Slow Horses by Mick Herron. So if we're looking for crime fiction, that's the one. But whether I would choose a different book from a different writer, I'm not sure.
Good afternoon, Anne. Ralph Morn from Sakehill Village. Listening to you earlier, and you were starting stories in your head, and no doubt you were writing them down in longhand.
Yeah.
Do you still do that, or have you embraced the modern technology?
I write on a laptop now. It's so much easier for editing, and publishers won't accept manuscripts that are hard copy manuscripts anymore, so it all has to be done digitally. But if I come to a scene that I'm struggling with, then I will get out the paper and pencil again. It's just it frees me up to think more creatively, I think.
Have you got post-its sticking around the house where something comes to mind?
No, because I don't plan in advance, so I don't need them. I just keep it in my head.
Right, thank you.
Which is why I get some continuity wrong.
Have we got Liz, Paul and Tony here? Yes? Karen says hello? Okay, another question for Anne?
Hi Anne, it's Jackie Davison. Do you find now that Vera has become a success, that there's more pressure on you now to write more frequently or more in advance?
No, because the television is quite separate, really. I've become great friends with the team and with Brenda and with Kenny, but it's different. I write the books and I don't feel any pressure. It's lovely that it's happened, and I'm very glad that it's happened now in later life rather than when I was starting off, because then it might have influenced my writing. Yeah. But as it is, it doesn't. I just tell the stories that I want to tell, and that's very liberating. And they do their own thing too, and that's as it should be, I think, because I have the joy of writing the books, and the creative people within Silverprint have the joy of writing the scripts, directing the shows, and it wouldn't be fair for me to interfere at that point, I think, because they know what they're doing and I don't.
That's
and they
lovely
wouldn't
to hear.
and they wouldn't listen to me anyway. So it's best that we keep good friends, and they do what they do best and I do what I do best. Yeah. And because of that, I do get invited to the read-throughs and to the cast and crew screening, and I always feel welcome when I go on set. And they're very generous, and Brenda turns out and does book festivals with me, and
Amazing.
It's good fun.
Thank you.
Another question for Anne, please?
I think that's Margaret. We need one from Margaret.
We'll get one from Margaret, don't worry.
You have to compromise with Judith. Do you have any say in the venues that they use for the actual shooting?
No, none at all. I have no influence at all on it. The only input that I had was with Shetland, when I suggested Stephen Robertson to play Sandy, because he's a Shetlander and he played Jimmy Perez on a Radio 4 adaptation of White Nights, I think. And it just made sense to me to have a Shetlander in the cast. He's a professional actor. So I did suggest that they might think about auditioning him, and he's in, so that I was delighted with that. But no, I don't want to interfere. It's not my place. So they choose where they go and what they do.
It certainly does the area justice.
Yeah, it does, and it's lovely, and it's bringing people in. And I was working with Public Health England, the local bit of Public Health England, and they were saying that it's making it easier to recruit doctors and dentists to the North East, which is terrific, isn't it?
Good.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said earlier. You said you know how to write books, but you don't know what makes good television.
No, I don't understand what. Can we get a question from Margaret over there, please, now?
Hello. Do you have any books from when you were a child? Because the very first book that I was given as a child was a Heidi book.
Oh, right,
and
yes,
I've still got that book.
Oh, brilliant. I don't have them, but my daughters have books that I had that I passed on to them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. It's very precious to me, that book. And
Yeah,
it was the first book ever bought for me.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, I used the library.
Yeah.
And at 10, sort of when I was in the 50s, when I was 10, this book was given to me as a Christmas present.
And you've still got it.
And
That's
I've still got
amazing.
it.
Yeah. It's important.
Okay, this gentleman here, please.
Hi, well, where else in India are you going to?
I'm doing Jaipur, and then I think there's a book festival in Calcutta that I'm doing as well, and then going back to Delhi to do some media things, I think.
So is it just a publishing kind of tour?
Yeah, it is.
Not a holiday?
Not a holiday, no. not a holiday. So quite a swift whiz round with my publisher, yeah.
Well, Anne, thanks so much. You're going to be around. You're going to be signing some books.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Forum Books, the indie bookshop in Corbridge, are supplying the books. So we do like to support our local indie booksellers. So if you want Christmas presents, I think we sold a lot of hardbacks this morning, so I'm not sure how many are left, but feel free to go and have a look and to come and get books signed and to chat, and I'll be around then. But thanks so much, and thanks to Ian for all those brilliant questions, and to Bessie for setting the whole thing
Bessie,
up.
where are you, Bessie?
Bessie,
Where's Bessie?
you around?
Oh, there she is. Thanks so much for coming along. It's really good that you're supporting things that Bessie has decided that for the last year or two that you really wanted to do this for you and for us. So thanks so much for supporting us.
And thanks to the Live for letting us use their space, because I think there are people in who's never been here before. So come along, because it's for everybody. So thanks a lot.
So have a great Christmas, and we'll see you outside as well.
See you outside.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.